Ladies and gents, welcome to the Commission Podcast with myself, David Cooley, and
And the Satan the Center, Marquette Devon Burton. We in the building.
Yes, we are here. So we are currently live streaming on the new channel we've created called the Commission Podcast. And then also I'm on my platform, No Fugazi, and Marquette is on his platform, which is called The Saint.
That's right.
All right, cool. So today, what we got in store for you guys is we're going to be reacting to the Piers Morgan video where he had on a few people that's in the spotlight currently right now. And it's pretty much they're talking about the N-word. It was a white lady that Piers pressed to say the N-word, which was weird. And then it was also a gentleman pretty much had a tantrum. So we're going to get into all of this and give you our reactions. Marquette, anything for the chat?
Well, listen, I think it's a little bigger than the N-word. We got some white supremacy popping off. We got some people missing the point, which shows psychotic levels of racism. We have some black whining and tantrum throwing going on. So we'll address all of it. I'm looking forward to the conversation and the collaboration. If you guys have questions, obviously, as David said, I think you can send them a star to get your questions answered. And for myself on my channel, The Saint, you see the information, which actually is not at the bottom, but you know what it is. You can hit me on Venmo or PayPal to send in your questions and we'll answer them as we go along. That about it?
That's about it. I can get that on the bottom too if you want me to.
Okay. Yeah, sure. That'd be helpful.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and do that now, actually. Let's see here.
I'll send it to you in the chat if that's easier in the private chat.
In the private chat? Yeah, and I'll just copy and paste it.
How's that?
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. You want that whole thing copy and paste it?
Yeah, let's try that out. See how that looks.
Actually, you know what? It kind of makes more sense if I just do the Venmo and PayPal like that. And let's put that on the bottom of the screen. Looks good.
All right.
All right. So let's get into the first clip for today, and let's see what we got in store for you guys.
Racially charged motivational reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're fighting ugly with ugly right now. And I think this level of racial tribalism and hostility is just simply not sustainable in such a diverse democracy like America. I think it's, one is really a reaction to the other. I think both campaigns are really hideous. And I think we're showing our ugliest colors. I mean, in the scheme of things, these are small sums relative to the population of America. But you do see, I think, a really tremendous explosion of ugliness and racial hostility that I think that we should all be ashamed and embarrassed of.
Yeah, I mean,
What'd you say, Quet?
I was saying, can you pause it? I don't know how you want to go about the pausing, but she didn't already started wild. She already started wilding, man. Here's the problem. Number one, we have a lot of folks that have the privilege of speaking while having limited intelligence. She said that these are relatively small sums considering the population of the United States, which is irrelevant because what we need to consider is the income of the person receiving the sum. You see, if you receive $500,000 and you're making $30K per annum, which is more than likely with this little dirty white broad, is her name Shiloh? I forget, but whatever her name is. So she's received an enormous windfall and it's completely unearned. And what's more, it's due to having a disgusting position that she took against a child. Even if it wasn't a racial thing, even if she would have called the child a dumb ASS, it still would have been wildly inappropriate. So anyways, this white chick on the far right, though she may be well-meaning and I smash, she's just not the brightest star in the sky. It really be like that. And that's the problem, man. We let too many women get on talking when really they just need to fall back. You did.
Hey, man, I don't disagree with anything that you just put down, brother. Let's keep going.
Let's work.
Described it, I think, in one of your posts as genuinely, is this a psyop? This would be the best $1 million invested by a foreign adversary to start a race war in America, and I knew exactly what you're getting at, because many of the I think the comments have now been suspended actually on both of these funding pages, because people were quite obviously deliberately misusing them to post race baiting commentary.
Absolutely. I mean, if you go through some of the comments on either of them, you have White Lives Matter on one side, and like suggestions that the teenage boy who was stabbed was somehow like a manifestation of white supremacy, and it seems to be just a fight at a track meet that has nothing to do with racial hostility in the first place. And the poor father of this young man who died too said, please don't make this into a racial issue. And yet on his own Give, Send, Go campaign, there are comments after comment saying this is White Lives Matter, we're avenging against Carmelo Anthony's family. I mean, on all ends, this is ugly. I think that it's really co-opting the charity and giving community. I mean, I feel bad for the fundraising.
Yeah, quite. What's your thoughts on that, man? So, the whole thing with Carmelo Anthony, and like she just expressed that there's like some revenge on the other side. They're going after, they're supporting the white woman that, pretty much, disrespected and foul-mouthed a young child that was disabled, I believe. I think, what was it? What was it? What disability did the child? Autism, yeah. So what's your thoughts on like why this other side, one of the motivations of why they're doing it is to be in support of a woman that is truly evil?
One thing we have to acknowledge, if we're being honest, is that there are extraordinary levels of racism in the United States among the white population, but this is not new, right? In fact, we'd have to acknowledge that there's been progress, right? It's not like you and I are being held in chains and being worked from sun up to sundown. So certainly there's been progress, but the fact of the matter is that anti-Black racism, or white supremacy, if you like, is not a new thing. But what's concerning is that it's resurfacing and it's more organized and it's not being combated. We see Trump, whom, by the way, I support. He may or may not be racist. For sure, Elon Musk is, because he's South African. But Trump may or may not be racist. I really don't care. I support him as a businessman, hoping that he makes me a richer businessman. But the fact of the matter is, under Trump, we see that these folks are organized. And for some reason, the RICO statute, which is used to bust up all kinds of organizations, for some reason, they never aim at the neo-Nazis, the skinheads, or the KKK. They allow these organized terror groups to continue to exist. And right now, we see a number of persons, including folks like Nerd Fuentes, who are clearly mongrels of mixed race, portraying themselves as the Aryan Superman while being small and frail and probably homosexual. We see that these folks operate as the figureheads, organizing a whole bunch of white males who are now angry because they're not as in a strong a position as their fathers and their grandfathers, and they're trying to take it out on the easiest target, which are the disenfranchised Blacks. Not to say that Black folks are in good condition. A lot of them are, criminal, have a very low culture. The women are promiscuous and unruly. There are a lot of things going on. And I think smaller government would benefit both groups across the board. But this woman is saying idiotic things yet again. She said she feels sorry for the charitable giving platforms that are being co-opted into racism. Those charitable giving platforms are taking a percentage of every dollar that goes on. So they're happy about this. So she's just a naive goofball. And this, again, is precisely why the woman needs to inhabit her natural position, which is as the support to a man, but not as a leader. And we find that our country suffers, all of civilization suffers, when women step out in front as the leader. So this is really an abomination, what she's saying. But we're going to see more of this unless we step up. And with the whites complaining, they complain about some things that are relevant, but most of what they're complaining about is nonsense. What they really need to do is get their house in order. If the white man really was a man, we wouldn't have the whole planet Earth suffering from the wickedness being spread by the liberal white woman. And what has she done? She created a legal system that fleeces us for child support, alimony. She created a system that allows us to get #MeToo. And now they're taking over positions in industry, commerce, and politics. And they're saying idiotic things like this cute little lady here who really should be relegated to domestic affairs.
Hey, man, let's continue on.
platforms, because I don't think this was the intention originally. But unfortunately, I think that people are really starting to take over good intents and the charity industrial complex to make it into a victim industrial complex. And it's really sad to see.
Well, we're going to have one of the founders of the Give, Send, Go site a little later in the program. But Mark Lamont Hill, you were shaking your head there. I mean, what's your take on this?
There are a couple of things that were said that I think are really interesting and important. One, there is an outside audience of people who are watching all of this and opportunistically using it for their own agendas and projects. You know, I have an investment in believing X, so I'm going to jump in the comments of this GoFundMe, etc. I have an investment in Y, I'm going to do the same thing. But what I don't want to do is compare these two things as if they're opposite sides of the same coin. For me, the intention of the campaign matters. In the case of the
Also, chat, everyone that's currently watching right now, if you have any super chats, support the channel by sending in a donation here on our main channel, which is the Commission Podcast. We're not monetized yet. So if you want to donate, send it into Marquette's channel or the Venmo or PayPal below, or you can also send it into No Fugazi Podcast. Any donations that you send up, we will read your super chat out loud.
And
this
Cooley,
woman
don't
who is
forget,
using
Yeah.
subscribe at the Commission.
Yeah,
Right?
subscribe. Everybody subscribe to
Right,
the Commission. We got to
Yeah.
listen. We got a lot of people tuning in right now. Me and Marquette, we got a joint podcast together called The Commission. Go to the channel and subscribe right now. And it's at The Commission, I believe, 1. So at The Commission 1 is the at. But if you just type in The Commission, it'll come right up.
using the N-word. The woman isn't disputing using the N-word. The woman isn't disputing being racist. And the comments that are being left on the site before they were suspended and the attitudes behind it weren't saying she's being railroaded, she's being misrepresented. They were simply saying, we support racism. And I think that's disgusting, no matter who's doing it. On the other hand, the people who are fundraising for Carmelo Anthony, the argument here isn't, yeah, we did something and we don't care, like the other woman. The argument is, we're being misrepresented here. We're being railroaded. This was a self-defense claim. This is not an act of violence. This isn't first-degree murder. I'm saying what they're saying. This isn't my argument. They're saying this is a first-degree murder claim that is wrong. This is actually self-defense, and we need the money to make sure that we get a fair trial. I think, and so whether you agree with his argument or not, I think raising money for a fair trial is different than raising money for a racist.
I mean, I think the comment.
Hey, Marquette, what's your take on the whole, all right, so you have they're raising money for, the woman that called the black kid an N-word and then also called the man that was recording the N-word. And she was, seemed like she just had she seemed like she had a lot of hate in her heart. But then they also raised money for, Carmelo Anthony and stuff like that. So what's your take on these, organizations, raising money for these victims? I don't look at the white woman as a victim, but in regards to Carmelo Anthony's family, that's up for take. But what's your take on this whole raising money for the victims?
Well, we see that we're dealing with psychotic levels of racism because they're comparing things that are incongruous. In the case of Carmelo Anthony, he's going into the court system, which requires a lot of money. I know I've been in the court system for many reasons, whether it's intellectual property, criminal issues, civil litigation, what have you. So it's a very expensive system, and it really favors those who are cash liquid. So he needs that money to put together a dream team to maintain his freedom. That's a necessity. Conversely, with regards to the white woman, she's not going to court. She doesn't need the money at all. In fact, it's just an effort on the part of anti-black white supremacists to show her, we fully support what you said. We support who you are. We support your perspective. And we would, in fact, like to encourage more of this behavior. So it's their way to have a mask on and show that she is supported in that way of thinking, will be praised and there will be no consequences. And mind you, this is radically different than if someone would have said something anti-Semitic. It shows you, like, for example, that group of people, they have power to punish, whereas the blacks, they don't have power to punish these people who wrong them. And this has been historically the case in the United States of America. The anti-black white supremacists, historically, they're liars, right? Like the colonial powers, they're liars. They tend to exaggerate in favor of themselves and, denigrate those who are not them. So the idea that whites are being victim in a country where they're the 60% majority, they're the overwhelming majority in Congress, Senate, and in terms of holding presidential office, they're overwhelmingly economically empowered. It's utterly ludicrous. And in fact, when they try to make excuses about, DEI, which I don't support at all, or Black Lives Matter, which again, I don't support at all, these organizations only exist and operate because of the funding that's coming from white liberals. And also they're generally a result of legislation and voting that is decided in a majority rule system, and whites are the majority. So these narratives that they're spinning are clearly false. And if I were on this panel with any one of these folks, I would have obliterated all of them. The black guy, whom I don't agree with, I think he's a bit hyper liberal for my taste and a bit sensitive, but he was the most reasonable and intelligent person in terms of presenting his arguments. Other folks were saying things that were not adding up very much.
Let's continue on. Good take.
Common theme between the two, and this is not to pass any view about it at this stage, although I have strong views about it. I guess the common theme is that both of them say that as a result of all the publicity, they've been doxxed and had all their personal details put everywhere on social media, which is, of course, the modern scourge which gets involved. And that as a result, they've had death threats and they have security issues and they have to move home and so on. I understand that part of the argument. When you're at the center of a firestorm in America and you're not used to public attention, then the levels of intimidation, threats, and so on that can come your way can be extremely intimidating, if not outright dangerous. So it's different really to taking a view about either of the cases, to simply say that the commonality is that they both, I think, have said in defending the amounts that have been raised is, well, we have to defend ourselves. Either, as you're putting it, through the courts, but also in his case, the alleged killer, that he has also, I think, had direct threats against him. And in the case of the mother using the N-word.
I'm going to skip this along a little bit for you guys.
And it's worth noting while you're doing that consistently we see that the humanity of black folks is denied, which, mind you, I don't have an issue with. I don't think that people need to not be racist. I don't think that whites need to be sympathetic. I think people need to do for self, whether it's on a tribal basis, a racial basis, a value. You're in a group of people who share your values, be it Republican or Democrat, conservative, liberal. You need to do for self for those people that you identify with. The identity of American has really taken a retreat as we find so much division, increasingly so, and there's no assimilation for the new folks coming in. But Piers Morgan, I find to be very sympathetic to this meth head white woman who's being egregious. I mean, if that were a white child, we'd be looking at it radically differently. It's like somehow when the child is black, we forget that it's a child. Then you add to the fact that the child is not only like 5 years old, but also has special needs. I mean, it's like we have no sympathy here. This is an extraordinary thing. It just really shows that human morality is in decay. But this is not new to observe psychotic levels of racism. Another thing I do want to acknowledge, shout out to the folks supporting the work. Shout out to Dominic, came in via PayPal supporting the work. I also want to acknowledge Reginald supporting via PayPal.
Sounds good. Let's see what we got at this timestamp. Let's see.
You have a right to be racist. You have a right to free speech in this country. But I'm not donating money for it, and I feel a lot worse about her GoFundMe than the one for the person who's been railroaded.
Yeah, well, Lily Gaddis, you posted a defense of Shiloh on X. It's been viewed 2.5 million times, in which it was entitled, "White People Are Finally Fighting Back. Stand with Shiloh Hendricks." What did you mean by that? Tax day has passed, but for millions of Americans.
Come on, Pierce, we don't care about that.
Pierce trying to get his bread, man.
He's trying to get his bread in.
In a real way.
Here's the thing. White people have been under attack for years. It's been systematic racism. As much as black people and people of color want to talk about systematic racism in the United States, It's quite the opposite. They get preferential treatment when it comes to getting a job, when it comes to getting into colleges. White people, on the other hand, have been getting attacked relentlessly. Look at 2016 and BLM and all the riots. We just had to sit back and watch people burn down our cities and do nothing about it. So the way to fight back against essentially this anti-white hatred that's been systemically, ingrained in U.S. society is with white unity. We don't see white unity on
Hang
our
on,
side.
hang on. Okay, but hang on. Sorry, just to...
She said a whole bunch of hogwash right there. I'm going to get your take first on this, and I'll go after you because I know you both got a lot to say on this one.
The most unfortunate combination in a woman is both being ugly and dumb. There's really nothing you can do with that. Maybe she might have like the throat of a giraffe, but aside from that, she has no value whatsoever, but ugly in the face and completely dim-witted. She should be in a circus working with like hunchbacks or something. But the point is this: she has clearly tried to blur things and talking about, whites are under attack. We saw the BLM riots. Weren't those goofballs rioting mostly in their own cities and the neighborhoods that they live in? I don't believe that they left and went to white suburbs. They didn't do that. These were urban riots, and urbanites, especially in poor areas, these are black folks. They're rioting in their own neighborhoods, and the stores that they are destroying are mostly owned by Koreans or Arabs and things like this. Not to say that it's right. It's not right at all. Furthermore, she's claiming that the whites are being attacked. But notice there's never any statistics. There's never any like clear explanation as to why that is. And then lastly, a lot of these things are a function of income. When you slice it up by income level, of course, poor people commit more crimes. They tend to be more violent, things like this. It's unfortunate. Now, is this to excuse the behavior and the culture of black people? Absolutely not. It needs to be reformed immediately. But one thing we fail to do with these white supremacists is to get them to be honest. The final solution that they're actually seeking is extermination of black people. These are people who are rabid and filled with hatred, including Nerd Fuentes, which is why they must be destroyed. There's nothing casual about what they're saying. The only ones that are casual are the tethers, are the ones that are not white that are trying to join the bandwagon, like Sneeko, the immigrant face-looking guy. He looks like an immigrant no matter what country you're referring to. These people are not white. They want to be white, and so they're just parroting. But they don't understand that the masterminds and the real devils at the top of this race hustling pyramid, they actually want the mass murder of black people, the extermination. That's what they really want. Because you'd have to ask them, well, if you guys are saying blacks are genetically predisposed to criminality and violence, then there's no solution for that. You can't fix it. You can't reform them. All you can do is exterminate them. And that's precisely what they're pushing toward, but they're not saying it, and no one's intelligent enough to pull this reality out of them.
Yeah, and I find it ironic how, when these white people on the right, they say, well, this is just an effect of all of the, racism that black people put out, the BLM riots, it's like an effect to all of this. But it's funny because manipulation happens when you focus on the effects instead of getting to the root cause of things. We would have to say, well, the BLM riots and I'm not in support of any of that, but black people acting out this way is an effect of slavery. So it's like they never really go to the root of things. They only go to the effects and try to, make themselves seem like a victim. So yeah, let's continue on.
To be clear, this has got nothing to do with anything you've just said. This is a disgusting racist woman who repeatedly spews the M-word, first at a young child.
Real quick, Marquette, in regards to people saying the N-word, right? Mm-hmm. Do you consider it being racist?
Well, we know the N-word has some variations to it, and there may be some who have racist intent and others who don't. At the end of the day, I do agree with something that's commonly stated by the right, which is a word should not send you over the edge. This is not to suggest that you should not enact consequences. Like, hey, if I was one-on-one with somebody and they called me the N-word hard R, and I looked around and I was sure there were no cameras and there would be no consequences and I could take their life, I'd absolutely take their life. Why not? Why not? But in the context of a civilization,
real quick, Marquette, would you? So that makes sense. would you still take their life or would you still have that same type of vitriol against them if they called you like a mother effer?
Well, mind you, there's no vitriol. I wouldn't even be angry.
Okay.
It'd just be a matter of, if you're using this word directed at me as an individual, it lets me know that you don't see me as an individual, because as an individual man, I'm very well accomplished, whether you're measuring it against the Black population, the white population, the Asian population. I'm in the top 1% of a lot of meaningful things, professionally, income-wise, you name it. I have intellectual property, right? So if someone's saying that, they're not talking about me, they're talking about the racial category that I belong to, which is to say that they are a legitimate racist. And for that reason, I'm always going to be someone that they're either going to try to do wrong or harm, and my children as well. So it would only be intelligent and strategic of me to eliminate this possible threat on the planet Earth, just like the United States does. If they think that someone is a threat or going to become a threat, they try to neutralize the threat. And so it wouldn't be a matter of hatred. It'd be a matter of what is appropriate to protect myself. It would be actually an offensive posture that's really, truly defense.
Yeah, I think me and you would agree on that too. I want to get your take on if it was a different word. So, if they called you the N-word, but what if they just called you mother effer, like another slur to,
well, those wouldn't be, if
you.
it was non-racial, if it was just an insult, again, I'd look around and try to figure out if I could get away with it.
Yeah.
And if I could get away with it, I would proceed with the most effective means of neutralizing that person. But surely, outside of that which is inherent, meaning those things you cannot change, the reason the racial piece is taken more seriously is, number one, because of the history. And then number two, because of the fact that if someone says, hey, David, you're an N-word hard R,
yeah,
that means no matter how smart you are, how pleasant you are, how much you contribute to the society, how much of a do-gooder you are, they still hate you. And what's more, they're malicious. So they're going to do something to hurt you and those like you, which would include your children and your wife. So that one you have to take the most seriously, not because you're most sensitive about it, but because you know that the threat is most serious. If they call me anything else, me personally, I just like to hurt my enemies. You hear me? If somebody's an enemy of mine, or if they think they're going to aggress toward me, I would like to destroy them. And this is not a thing that's unique to me. In fact, this is something that you'll read about in Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince. This is something that you'll observe among people we regard well, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and others that I won't name because I don't want the stream to get flagged.
Yeah, I agree on that, man. And I wanted to get your take on that to see if we actually agree on that. Because they would both be insults. If someone called me a mother effer, if someone called me the N-word, it would both be insults. I remember when I was in 7th grade, a white kid, his name was Big John. He called me the N-word. This was the first time I've ever knocked someone out for calling me the N-word. And this was when I was more in my emotional state as a young man.
Okay.
So yeah, he called me the N-word, and I said, listen, you call me that one more time, I'm punching you in the face. And this was 7th grade. I was pretty tall. I had to have been like maybe 5'8" at this time.
Okay.
But he was like 6'2". He was tall.
That's wild.
He was mad big.
Yeah.
And I beat him bad beat down.
Praise his
But
name.
in regards to that, looking back at it and stuff, when we compare the N-word to another word that's an insult, I do agree with the point that you said, well, this word has history behind it. This word is fully like minimizing you as a person and all of your ancestors and everything else. This word is illogical too, because it's like for someone to be racist, it's illogical. It's void of logic because it's nonsense. So I get what you're saying. I agree on that part. All right, let's continue on.
And then at the person taking the video of her, does it with complete impunity, does it numerous times. We are talking about a bona fide, unquestionable racist. And so I don't understand why what you've just said to me bears any relation to white unity or anything that you've just said. She's just a racist. End, isn't she? You wouldn't dispute that.
It's not about her. It's not about her. It's about
Well, it is
white
about
people
her.
finally coming together and supporting another white person, and it doesn't matter.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in a country.
No, that's fine. You can support free speech, but you also have to be accountable for what you say.
Yeah, so this part I think is silly, like when they say, hey, I want to support free speech. Okay, I get what you're saying, and I am in support of free speech as well. I think anyone, should have the ability to say whatever they want to say, and I should have the ability to react any way I want to react. So with free speech comes consequence. Nothing is truly free. There's always going to be a consequence to the things that you say and to the things that you do, is because we're human beings of agency and we can't control other human beings. Every human being has agency. So with that being said, it's dumb when you say, well, I am in support of free speech, but why are you in support of a negative, demeaning term? Like that term is like, okay, I'm in support of, I don't cuss at all. The chat knows me. I don't say the F word. I don't say any of those words.
Shout out to Cooley, man.
But I do say the N word every now and then.
You slip it out.
Look, nigga this, nigga that, nigga please.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying.
Right.
But so it's like, and it's not that the word was used, because I got white friends. Do my white friends say the N-word? No, they do not. But have I been around white people that use the N-word, but it wasn't negative? Maybe they're rapping a song and they're in our culture a little bit, so they're using it, and they're not using it to degrade me or insult me. That's a little bit different. But this woman is literally talking about, she wants to defend the insult of the N-word. Not just white people saying it like, hey, you know what? I want to defend the N-word. If I'm rapping a 50 Cent song, I want to say the nigga in there. It's like, that makes a little bit more sense, but it's still weird, but it makes a little bit more sense. But she wants to defend the insult of the word, meaning when a white person has negative feelings towards someone and they hate someone and they want to call someone an N-word. So that's a little bit different. What's your take on that, Marquette?
Someone like this must be eliminated because they are someone filled with hatred, and there's no cure to that. That's what we have to understand, is that these persons are extraordinarily dangerous. And I also am one who believes in freedom of speech. I believe the individual should have the freedom to say what they want without the government censoring them or hauling them off to jail. So if one wanted to walk down, Boulevard in Harlem and keep yelling out the N-word, they should be able to do it. The government should not stop them. However, if the people decide to take action, they can take action, and they will suffer the full extent of the law, whether that law that they break be assault, murder, or otherwise. And so we have to realize that with small government, we will have freedom of speech, but freedom of speech will never trump or control how people may react to you. But what we see with this woman, and this is very common in the space, is that they cloak their hatred by claiming that it's about freedom of speech, when really it's about racism and them promoting their anti-Black white supremacist agenda. And the great irony is you'll hear these types engage in all sorts of deluded thinking. They'll say things like, go back to Africa. Fine, let's go back to Africa. Are you going to go back to Europe and leave this land to the natives who are originally from here, be those natives Native Americans or those other populations who claim that they came before Columbus? So basically, you have a group of people who are irrational, and their irrationality can be best understood as a fight for genetic survival. It's a subconscious driving force in these white supremacists who believe that because they are genetically recessive, they will basically experience intermixing of the races and they will cease to exist. Now, who's mostly holding this fear? It's mostly weak white males, not normal, good-looking, tall white guys. It's the Nick Fuentes types, small, puny, nerd types, and he is in fact a virgin, and they believe that someone like you, Cooley, big tall black guy, is going to take all the good white women and they're going to be left mateless. And as you observe in nature, there's a struggle for mates, and that's precisely why they utilize racism, because they're under the false idea that if big black handsome guys like Marquette and David Cooley weren't taking their girls, they'd be able to get some girls. And frankly, that's not the case, because women go toward the top of the triangle. And this argument is very meaningful when you look at, for example, the leadership of the Nazi Party. They were all like a little bit weird. Only one of them was really a stud. Adolf had that bulbous nose that actually looked Jewish. He had narrow shoulders and dark hair. Joseph Goebbels had a club foot. He was very puny, extremely ugly. And you look at Himmler and all the other guys, they were pretty pathetic in terms of the Aryan ideal. They weren't those big Teutonic giants of men. And even as Europeans go, Europeans are pretty tall. Like I'm in Europe right now, and a lot of these chicks are looking eye to eye. I'm like, shorty, 6'2" out here. So the fact of the matter is, it's the weak elements, and the reason they love racism, white supremacy in particular, is because of this. If you are nothing as an individual, you can feel like something as a part of a group. You see, I don't have to say black people are the best, because as an individual, I have accolades, I have wealth, I have power, I have influence. So I don't have to identify with a group that's powerful because I have power. But if you're puny, weak, unattractive, low value on the sexual marketplace, then you need to identify with this group and say, I'm important because of the group I belong to. And you get even more of a boost of ego saying, I'm better than these other people. They're beneath me. Notice this girl is butt ugly. And then Nick Fuentes is small, puny, and a virgin. It's never the tall, good looking, strong Aryan Superman that the weaklings speak about that's leading the charge of racism. Never happens.
That is true. That is true. All right, I got a super chat that came in. Shout out to Michael Mack. He says, salute, fellas, appreciating the intellectual integrity here and supporting my interests. All right, man. Shout out to you.
Shout out.
Any chats you want me to read on your end, Marquette?
Yeah, let me just drop a few in from PayPal. Shout out to Frank. He writes, may this new podcast prosper. Absolutely. And folks, check us out at The Commission on YouTube. It may be The Commission.1 if you just search it up. May I also acknowledge Eric. He writes via Venmo, whenever a black person does something perceived as wrong, it is often attributed to their race. Conversely, when a white person does something wrong, they're typically seen as an individual acting maliciously. Thoughts? Well, yeah, I agree with you on that one. And it's been said before by a scholar I won't name that if you do not understand white supremacy, everything else will confuse you. And white supremacy operates in every area of human activity: law, labor, sex, war, sports, entertainment, economics, and education. I agree with that, but I do not agree with the victimhood that a lot of black people take on. Number one, black people are black people's biggest enemy, not white people. It's you.
Facts.
It's your poor parents. It's your promiscuous mothers. It's your fathers that are undisciplined and themselves effeminate. So what we have to do is take on the balance and the full perspective of knowing that black people are responsible for black people's rise. And certainly you won't get any reparations. And here's a crazy one: you don't deserve reparations. And here's a funnier one: you can't handle reparations. And plus white people ain't gonna give it to you anyways. So that's number one on the black side. You got to take care of your own issues. And then on the white side, does white supremacy exist? For sure. Absolutely. Are there white people that are perfectly good people and don't care anything about doing harm to you, and they like sincerely don't understand racism because they're not experiencing it, or they're just not interested, they're apathetic? Absolutely. So you have to be able to acknowledge the reality and see the fullness of things. But for us to experience change, we really need training. And truth be told, I always say 20% of black people just got to be eradicated. This ugly racist broad here got to be eradicated, and 20% of black scum needs to be eradicated. We're talking about the Sexy Reds. We're talking about the Nicki Minaj. We're talking about the Lil Nas X. We're talking about the Beyonce Knowles, and maybe even throw P. Diddy in there. And I think we'd be all right after that.
He said, throw P. Diddy in there. All right.
Pending his guilt. Pending his guilt.
Pending his guilt. Pending his guilt. Okay, cool. Let's see. We had a super chat that came up. I'm going to see if I can pop it up. I had it up. Let's see. It was from your end, Marquette.
Okay. Let's talk
just a moment here. It just disappeared.
I actually got him right here. Shout out to Chung supporting the work. May I also acknowledge Drip Lord with the bowler alert. He writes, here to learn and take in this ism. You brothers are what is needed. Peace of the saints. And shout out to Cooley, whose idea this was. And one thing I like about Cooley, guys, and you'd be blessed to have friends and business partners like this, is Cooley actually has self-confidence. So when you have people who have self-confidence, they're not jealous of you, If you're a good person, you're not jealous of them. Therefore, you can come together and collaborate and you can grow together. Cooley's always been a great partner in sharing his knowledge, advice, and wisdom. Wants to see me win. I want to see him win. I encourage you guys to have relationships with people that you're equally yoked with. We usually talk about romance in terms of being equally yoked, but rarely partnerships, friendships, and business. Shout out to Jonathan, who just became a member. He writes, when whites claim they're being marginalized, I laugh. After years of war, racism, and colonization, they still find a way to blame colored folks. Ain't that something? That is kind of crazy, to be honest with you. Shout out to Dimavelli writes, W on the collab, fellas. Nana writes, Marquette, I wonder if you and Myron Gaines have had this type of discussion, because he seems to see you as a hard, I think they meant to say hard R. They have a typo here. No, we haven't had the conversation because it's not going to go anywhere. Myron's view and my view, we have some overlap, and then we have other areas of significant difference, but we're able to get along as friends, as individual men, and do business together. And that's all it needs to be. I don't think it's intelligent to start arguments in your personal life with people that you're friends with or do business with, because there's no profit to it. Some of the things he may say is because he's in the entertainment business. And so he says what he says on this podcast. I know his views. I trust he knows my views. Shout out to Mr. Buck supporting the work. And CSIDE Blue writes, I give no passes to the word. Too much hate behind it. My Hispanic neighbor learned that the firsthand. Say it, get beat down. Simple. Bro, wow.
Yeah, I got it pulled up right here. Yeah.
Shout out to Todic supporting the work.
Okay, let's continue on with this video. See what else. And I know we're gonna skip along a little bit, but let's see what else she has to say. I also want to get to the point where Myron speaks, and then also the other black guy speaks as well. And
I'm gonna turn
then,
on some AC while you do that. Be right back.
Okay, cool. And then also, chat, everybody that's supporting right now, go ahead and subscribe to the Commission podcast. It is at the Commission 1. So at the Commission 1, pull it right up and subscribe to the channel. All right, let's continue on.
She is, I mean, would you use the N word out of interest?
Yes.
You would?
I do quite frequently.
You use the N word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist. Are you?
Some would say I am. I guess according to the ADL, I'm a white supremacist. I'm a neo-Nazi.
Yeah, well, if you use the N word repeatedly, you are a racist, then, are you?
Sure, I'll embrace that. If that means forwarding, helping white people achieve freedom of speech, real freedom of speech, which, by the way, Shiloh Hendricks is being attacked on all fronts. They're trying to bring legal charges against her. They're trying to get her children.
So that's the thing. Pierce is a slippery, slimy guy. Yeah. And he's trying to pinpoint her down on the word. Do you use the N word? And she's saying, yeah, I use it, quite frequently. Like, okay, do you listen to a lot of hip hop songs? That's why you're using it? Or do you have a lot of black friends that's fully cool with you using it around them? And she really didn't. She kind of just, answered it to be extremely direct, which is fine. Usually women are very indirect, but he's like trying to pinpoint her down on something, but she didn't explain it. And as we continue on, you'll see where it goes.
Taken away. So you were saying Carmelo Anthony, it doesn't matter. That's a different.
Sorry, but just to be
thing.
clear, you just said to me you use the N word regularly. In what context? Do you use it with black people?
Yes, if it's appropriate.
When would it be appropriate to use the N word? When would it be appropriate?
Anytime I feel like it.
So you're an unashamed racist.
Correct.
Well, do you understand that makes you a despicable human being?
I guess so. I don't really care. I mean, why are we not talking about Shiloh Hendricks? Why are we talking?
Yeah, so she did pretty much confirm it there. She's not trying to back it up, because if you look at what she said, a person that doesn't have any hatred in their heart, and if they're using the word not to insult other black people, they would express that and explain themselves like, yeah, if they're honest, I've used the word and I use it here and there, but it's never to insult or, make another black person feel bad or, stuff like that. And she's just pretty much saying like, no, she uses it a lot. So that is a difference there. And for that, since she didn't explain and she just went ahead and confirmed what he said, even when Pierce repeated the question, I would have to say that there's most likely some hate in her heart for black people. What's your thoughts on that, Marquette?
Come on, bruh. I mean, these people are quite despicable because, like me, in full transparency, since I moved out of the ghetto, which was many years ago, because I've only ascended, most of the people I engage with and deal with on a regular basis professionally, and I do a lot of business, are non-blacks. And I have a lot of people around the world. Obviously, I'm in Europe right now handling some business affairs, and this is the white people factory here. I mean, this is where they produce white at. But I have no problem with white people being proud of who they are, especially if they're like Europeans. They have an actual culture, right? Like white folks in America, like I'm 10% German and 20% English and 30%. It's like, shut up. Like, you don't know anything about like what your heritage is. Just shut up. Eat a hot dog and chill out. But people who say, "Hey, man, I'm Serbian and I'm proud of it," or "I'm Croatian, I'm Albanian, or I'm French, or I'm German," and they really have that blood that goes back into their soil and they have pride in that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. However, what you find among many of these types of American whites is not pride for being white. It's unadulterated hatred for everyone else. And this is not speculative. There is evidence. And these folks, as they speak, they're sitting on the bones of the Native Americans who were murdered. And there was never any criminal case. There was never any apology. In fact, oppositely, they made a holiday and called it Thanksgiving and acted like it was all good. They're standing on the bones of what is mass murder, and it occurred on a racial basis. Many of these people have not changed at all. It's not about being pro-white. It's about being anti-everything else. And that is the problem with these people, is that they are, in fact, devils on earth. We never had a problem with you being pro-white. And when they try to flip the script and call black people black supremacists, you cannot give a single instance in the history of the United States where you have any group of black people who committed organized violence against whites merely because they're white. I'll repeat that. Any group of black people, an organization of black people who committed organized violence against whites merely because they're white. Black people don't have it in them. I've many times described black people as an effeminate mass. Conversely, you can describe the neo-Nazis, you can describe the Ku Klux Klan, you can describe the whole industry that was around transatlantic enslavement, and the dead bodies hanging from the trees have even been immortalized in songs like Strange Fruit by Billie Holiday. So this has been a pastime of white racists, and now they try to disguise what they are and say they're pro-white when in fact they're anti-everything else.
We got a super chat that came up here. Mont and Deja super chat says, "I disagree, bro. Pierce cares more about what she said instead of trying to understand what she meant. I feel at this point she's in defense mode against everything and has chosen to accept his and the world's labels given to her." Yeah, I don't really see how you disagree with the points that we made. We agree with exactly you pretty much confirmed what we stated here. Like to your first part, you said that Pierce cares more about what she said instead of trying to understand what she meant. That is true. This is why Pierce is a slippery, slimy guy. When I spoke in the beginning, I said, well, Pierce, you gotta give her a chance to explain. The thing is, she never wanted to explain. She could have said, well, what I meant was I use the N-word in these type of scenarios in this way, not to insult someone or to degrade someone. So yeah, man, it fully, she just confirmed it herself that she is a racist without really defending her point. And I don't think she has it in her to defend her point because she actually agrees with what Pierce said. Yeah, she agrees with it.
Girl, she keeping it a bean. That's how
she is keeping it a bean.
I like my racist to be, you heard me, authentic. El Authentico.
Yes. All right, let's keep playing it a little bit more.
Talking about.
Well, actually, I think you've moved it on in this debate very quickly to your own racism, which explains why you've supported her in public and why you've got all these views. You see no problem with a woman shrieking the N-word repeatedly because you yourself are a despicable racist. And you've just proudly admitted that with a smug grin on your face, which is pretty horrifying, actually, for most people to have to watch. And shame on you. You're entitled to do it, and I'm entitled to call you despicable.
Well, shame on white people for allowing themselves to be systematically discriminated against in the United States. This is our country. This is a country that should be.
What do you mean your country?
Because I'm white and my
Well, there are no black people in American history. Is that what you're saying? That they've all just landed in America, invading you,
yes.
your white country? Is that your position?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, they were brought here technically.
My God, do you understand how dumb you sound?
This is stupid. This is stupid and racist. And at some point, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to reward this kind of disgusting behavior by platforming it?
I don't disagree, Mark. Listen, I didn't know she was going to say that. I don't disagree with you.
No. Yeah. I'm with you. I don't think you knew ahead of time. I'm saying at this moment, someone who's saying it's technically black people brought up. No, technically, Africans were stolen, enslaved, and they built this country. And the idea that you can justify calling a baby the N-word by saying that white people are losing the country is absurd.
Marquette, what's your take on that?
I'm just thinking about how funny it is to call a baby the N-word.
That's OD.
Yo,
Imagine playing at the park and you just see like some little, white baby. Let's just reverse it.
Right.
It has to be hate in my heart if I see this white little child.
Yes.
And I'm like, look at this cracker.
Right.
Like, dang, like it has to be some hate there.
deep levels of hate, man.
Deep levels,
bro.
In regards to what Mark Lamont said, I think that's his name, Mark Lamont Hill.
Yeah.
He's saying that, okay, well, the white man took the black people and enslaved, black people and stuff like that. And he's pretty much going currently right now, up until now, he's really playing the victim card. I don't think prior to this, he wasn't playing the victim card, but I think now the victim card is coming out a little bit. What's your take on what he said?
Listen, there's two perspectives. There's the truth, and then let's say this, there's truth and then there's perspective. How about that? There's truth and then there's perspective. So when the white supremacist anti-black woman states that this is our country, Mark Lamont Hill, being very liberal, his perspective is that, no, this is our country. That's what you guys have said, is it's our country. But that's his perspective. No, the truth is this is a white country. The United States of America is a white country. It was founded by white men who were fairly ruthless, and they organized the country for their benefit, and I trust for the benefit of their lineage. So it is correct. I mean, just because you were brought here to build it doesn't mean that it's yours. That just means you were exploited. Just the same as if I own a corporation outright, and I own several outright, if I hire someone, whether they're as an employee or an independent contractor, I'll work them to death, pay them pennies, and then fire them, and they get nothing. They own nothing. They were there for labor. So in as much as that's the case, it's not actually reasonable to state that black people built the country unless you're stating it in a literal sense. And they literally did build the country. For example, the White House, I do believe, was built on slave labor. I trust some of the geniuses in the chat can correct that if that's not a fact. But the fact is, this woman is a dimwit, but she is speaking something true, which is it is a white country. And it can be a country that is truly inclusive if the white majority would have it as such. According to the data, that's not the case. You look at the presidency, has 12% of the presidents been black? No. Is 12% of the Senate or Congress black? No. Not that you have to have apples to apples representation, but having the representation closer to that level would suggest that there's true enfranchisement. Singapore is a great example of seeing a multiracial society where people are mostly enfranchised, but still that's a Chinese society. It's an ethnic Chinese society. The Han Chinese are the majority. So that woman's speaking truth. In terms of Mark Lamont Hill, he's giving a perspective. He's speaking in an aspirational sense. And, he's a commentator. I believe he may have a professorship. And these academics, they like to do this. They'll never organize. They'll never get anything done. What white supremacists really secretly love They love a Lamont Hill. They love a Eva Tunde, King Kong consciousness, because he's never going to build a school. He's never going to do anything meaningful. He's going to try to, this ball tried to do a 20v1. You hear me? Like, that's not revolutionary.
Oh, man.
So they love those types, but they hate someone like me that's deeply practical and pragmatic. You can't name one black person in the last couple of decades that's actually had any ideology. And so we can get this thing going. You heard me? So as I say, assassin or nothing.
Shout out. Let's continue on.
Absurd. It's morally bankrupt, and it's honestly besides the point. I mean, all these are just distractions from the fact that she wants to justify dehumanizing and even animalizing a small black child. It's disgusting.
What is it?
Yeah, I never said that. I never said that.
No, but you may as well have done, because you're just an unashamed.
Yeah, that's the thing. She didn't defend it. Yeah, you might as well said it, because the whole time you wasn't against any type of, racist speaking on, the Shiloh woman. And then you even confirmed yourself that, I am pretty much a racist. So for you to say, I never said that now, no, you did say it, because you didn't say nothing else.
Implication of
Proud
your
racist. Let me bring in Myron Gaines, because you've been smirking and laughing. What's funny about any of this?
Well, I mean, I find it interesting that you guys want to virtue signal and, wag the finger and say she's a racist and everything else like this.
No, she admits she's a racist.
Thank you.
Well, let me
I'm not wagging a finger at anybody. I don't need to but Myron, with respect, Myron, I don't need to wag a finger when somebody says, yeah, I'm racist. I use the N-word against black people. I don't care. That's a racist. I'm not wagging any finger. I'm not accusing.
Yo, Pierce like to cut people off.
And you know what? But shout out to Pierce, because Brody was dead wrong. That's my brother, but he was dead wrong. The woman did say that she's a racist.
She did say it, yeah.
Right? She's proud of it. And I think that because our society is so censored and it's so sensitive, when someone comes out and says, hey, I am this, it's almost hard to like accept it. Like, for example, if someone came out and said, I'm a RAP and then space IST, and they said that as an identity, you kind of like, wait, what? Bro, what did you say? If they're like, yeah, in my free time, I like to, take advantage of females. That's what I like to do. You'd be kind of like shocked and thrown off. And I think that's what people are having trouble accepting, is that she came out and said, yes, I am the boogeyman. Like, I really want these people out of here. And so when Myron said, oh, you're calling her a racist, no, she called herself a racist.
Yeah. And I even had to, when Pierce first pressed her on it, I'm like, I gave her a little bit of benefit of the doubt, because she didn't explain herself. But then she just kept doubling down. I'm like, oh, yeah, no, this is in her heart. Yeah, she is a racist.
She's a real one.
Yeah.
Anybody, she is admitting it proudly. Even you can't defend that, surely.
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is, it depends on, a lot of people want to be politically correct. A lot of people want to sit there and say, I'm not racist at all. We all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all make jokes. We all are racist to some degree. Now, how racist you are is a whole other situation, but everyone is racist. That's number one. Next thing I want to say, see, I think this Shiloh Hendricks.
I agree with that part, what Myron said. When how he's saying, everyone has a little bit of races in them, stereotypes, they have some biases and stuff like that. That part is true. But that's much different than how she's been explaining and expounding on her points during this interview. She pretty much confirmed that her racist is different than the type of racist that Myron is talking about. Her racist is, no, I am racist. I insult black people. She never said nothing differently. I use the N-word. This is what I do. So I think that Myron, what he's saying is facts right here, but it's general facts. Let's continue on.
And Metcalf situation is a microcosm of a much bigger problem. And that bigger problem is what I call systemic organization. And what I mean by this is, for decades, we've had black people literally running around with black supremacy, committing crimes, not getting accountability for their actions, and then they blame the system for it. For example, George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson, criminals. Freddie Gray, criminal. A lot of these people are criminals, and what ends up happening is they challenge the police officer, they get into a physical altercation, things go left, they die, something happens, use of force is utilized, and then they want to cry about the result, when in reality, it's not the police killing black people, it's black people killing black people. And if you want to talk about black on white violence, Black people kill white people 2 times as much. And on top of that, most of the shootings in America, a lot of the times, are white cops killing other unarmed white men. So this whole systemic racism or police brutality or, oh, it's all so messed up. The reality is this. Black people have been able to get away with a ridiculous amount of privilege in America for a very long time. They're able to be racist with impunity. They're able to call white people crackers without being challenged back. And quite
Okay, so the thing on this, he says black people have gotten away with a lot of privilege, but the privilege he's explaining is, I mean, it's not really privilege. It's like, okay, I can say this, but it's not really privilege. You would say that it's an effect of what the white man has done. Because I always like to say, like, if we're going to speak about, because I see the claims that he's making right now, he's saying that, well, white people are behaving this way and saying these things, and this uproar that white people are doing, this is an effect because black people have been BLM riots. They can call a white person a cracker, which I'm against all of that too, but black people has been doing this. But then let's peel the layer back even further. Well, why are black people doing this? Well, black people are doing it now, and the BLM riots and all of this is because of the racism in America. What's your take on that, Marquette?
Myron's my good friend. However, everything he said was nonsensical. He hasn't made one good point so far, and he'll still be my good friend even though we disagree. So number one, when he states that everyone's racist, this is not a fact, but he's able to suggest that it is, and no one challenged that idea. That's false. I would go out and say I'm not racist at all. For example, and a lot of people, they look at Myron, and because they're provincial and inexperienced and not sophisticated or well-traveled, they look at Myron and they say, oh, he's black. No, Myron's not black. To me, he looks just like a dark Arab. And the reason he looks like a dark Arab is because I've traveled extensively, particularly in the Middle East and Eastern Africa and Southern Africa, and I've seen his face before many times. And so you look at his features, they're not the features of a sub-Saharan African, even though he is dark. You find dark skin in various places, whether you're talking about in India or you're talking about in Australia. We're talking about the Aborigines, the real Australians. So Myron may be dark, but he's not a black person in the sense of he's not an African American, or he's not really properly an African. He looks just like an Arab to me. He is an Arab, and he's just a dark Arab. So when people get angry that he's not so sympathetic to black issues, well, it's like, that's not what he identifies with. I believe his parents' mother tongue was probably Arabic. And in as much as that's the case, I get it. However, I would venture to say this, with all respect for my good friend, that he shouldn't even be a part of this conversation. Piers Morgan shouldn't be in the conversation. He's not even an American. He's a goddamn Britisher. And he's therefore removed from this. Myron, he just got here yesterday, as did his parents. They're not a part of this conversation. The history of America and the racial politics, it's black and it's white. This is not to disrespect any other group. And if there wasn't 2 other groups that will be involved, it'd be the Native Americans, because they were here before all of us and largely got eradicated. They still exist in casinos and in reservations. Shout out to them. So they can be a part of the conversation. And then you'd have Latinos a part of the conversation. But frankly, American racial political history is black and white. There's not much in between. It was always a conversation between these 2 opposing groups, and they're not really opposing, except that the whites wanted to, oppose the blacks. And it's not every bit of the white structure. It was primarily the property class. And then the other ones just had racism, like petty racism. The property class, they owned black people in a literal sense. But I say all that to say, number one, Myron is irrelevant. He shouldn't be speaking on these issues. These are not his issues at all. Similarly, they're not Piers Morgan's issues, but specifically with regards to Myron's arguments, they're atrocious. Saying everyone is racist, this is not a fact. Saying most people are racist, that makes sense. And then thirdly, he basically conflates a lot of things. And as a result, you can't track the arguments because he's blurring together too many things. In fact, I'd encourage you to rewind back and we can take it sentence by sentence and deconstruct the arguments.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson.
Get the likes up. Everybody that's supporting right now, get the likes up. We got, let's see, over 2,000 people on all channels. So that's pretty good.
Games, because you've been smirking and laughing. What's funny about any of this?
Well, I mean, I find it interesting that
I'll skip ahead this part.
No. Let's
Leave it right there. Okay, let's go right there.
I'm not wagging a finger at anybody.
She's
I don't need to
self-identified as a racist. She
But
said, "I
Myron,
am a
with
racist."
respect, Myron, I don't need to wag a finger
And Marquette, let me know when you want to stop it.
Okay.
when somebody says, yeah, I'm racist, I use the N-word against black people, I don't care. That's a racist. I'm not wagging any finger. I'm not accusing anybody. She is admitting it proudly. Even you can't defend that, surely.
Everybody is racist to some degree. The reality is,
Piers Morgan's argument. She said the N-word with the hard R, which was clearly a hateful thing. She was saying it to be malicious against the Black American. That is hate. Then Myron basically engages in a subtle red herring, very slick. He says everyone is racist, which what he's talking about is a mitigating idea, which suggests that, well, all of us have our own biases, yes, but that's a lot different than me going around calling people wet, B-A-C-K-S, or calling people ching chong, and using all these malicious, hateful terms. If I, for example, have some inherent bias or some instinct to discriminate merely because people are unfamiliar or different, or I'm ignorant of them, or maybe I've seen a lot of stereotypes, that's a lot different than being willfully malicious. So Piers is talking about racism that is willfully malicious, whereas Myron tries to change the topic to racism that is kind of inherent and thoughtless. So, and I can obliterate these one by one. Carrying on.
it depends on, a lot of people want to be politically correct. A lot of people want to sit there and say, I'm not racist at all. We all have biases. We all have stereotypes. We all make jokes. We all are racist to some degree. Now, how racist you are is a whole other situation, but everyone is racist. That's number one. Next thing I want to say, see, I think this Shiloh Hendricks and Metcalf situation is a microcosm of a much bigger problem. And that
this is another thing that clearly shows that we're dealing with racism, because these two situations are very unrelated, very unrelated. Shiloh is a white woman who's in a situation that is clearly racial because she's screaming the N-word at a child, no less, a child with special needs. It's clearly a racial situation. The Austin Metcalf situation could be a racialized situation by the onlookers, because truth be told, that could have easily been a situation where Carmelo Anthony was sitting under someone's track tent. A black kid could have walked up to him like, hey, bro, you ain't even a part of this school. You're not supposed to be under this umbrella, bro. Go over there. And then Carmelo Anthony could have hunkered down and said, no, make me. And then the dude put his hands on him. Black guy put his hands on Carmelo. Carmelo pulled out that thing, hawked him. Now he's dead. There was no overt racial reality to that. It was made racial by the onlookers. So these two phenomena are not even congruous. The only reason that whites bring that up is as an excuse, is a rallying cry to circle around this white kid who was a victim and thereby aggress toward blacks. That's all that was. And no,
bigger problem is what I call systemic organization.
I just want for those who are watching, each one of these arguments are being obliterated and it's effortless. I don't even have to think, to be honest with you. I could play piano right now while saying this. It's that easy. Go ahead.
Hey, man, you spitting.
And what I mean by this is, for decades, we've had black people literally running around with black supremacy.
He said for decades, we've had black people running around with black supremacy. Fascinating. I'd go ahead and say, if I was Piers Morgan, which I'm not, because I'm not going to get into it. But if I was Piers Morgan, I would say for decades, well, Myron, how many decades have we had black people running around with black supremacy? How many decades is that, Myron? Was it in the 1800s? Was it during enslavement? No. Okay. Was it during Reconstruction? Was it right after the Civil War? No. Was it during Jim Crow when they were not getting their enfranchisement? No. Okay. Was it when the 1950s and 1960s when they were marching and trying to get the right to vote? No. Okay. Was it the 1970s when they still weren't getting their due? Was it the 1980s when they had to radicalize because they weren't getting their due? When did black people become black supremacists? Was it in the 90s when they started perming their hair out to imitate the white people that most of them look up to very much? When did the black supremacy start to exist? Name me 3 black supremacist organizations with significant membership. You couldn't. In fact, I could get a Lil Wayne concert and that would have more attendees than any black supremacist organization you could name. For example, if you talk about the Nation of Islam, this organization nearly has no members. That's why they partnered up with the Church of Scientology, which is a white organization. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, once the FBI went in and murdered people, literally, illegally, unethically, the new Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, they can't even get members. So what are you talking about? This is not truth. There's no evidence of it. It's truly speculative.
Committing crimes, not getting accountability for their actions, and then they blame the system for it. For example,
he stated black people are committing crimes and not having accountability for their actions. This is the most ludicrous thing on earth. See, I would challenge him with the statistics. Number one, half of the prison population is black male. So it's about 48, 49%, right? The black population in America is about 12%, and I would venture to say much less if we actually had a true accounting of who's in the country. With that being the case, we are disproportionately represented in the penal system. So clearly they're experiencing accountability. Furthermore, not only are they experiencing accountability, they're experiencing more than accountability. There's a scholar named Dr. Renford Reese, whom I know personally. He wrote a book called The Prison Race. You can find a lot of the knowledge I speak to, which is all fact-based. You go to amazon.com/shop/the Saint, the Sinner spelled out. It's a lot of literature there. But anyways, Dr. Renford Reese wrote a book called Prison Race. When you hold consistent prior crime, current crime, and then you look at jail time, you find that blacks are getting more jail time than whites on average. It's very clear. It's very much so statistically significant. So they are being held accountable. In fact, they're being abused in the criminal injustice system of the United Snakes of America. And I say this as a patriot, but to be a patriot means that I identify with the people of America, who are the greatest people on the planet Earth, including with our significant racist population, but our government is filthy. And what he's speaking of right now is completely devoid of facts.
George Floyd, criminal. Ferguson, criminals. Freddie Gray, criminal.
Pause.
A lot of these people are criminals.
This is the first time he says something meaningful in this conversation. And it's meaningful because black people do circle around the wrong person. We support the degenerate in our community. We support as he said, I don't even know these people's name because I don't even care who they are, but Freddie Gray, I remember because I used to teach in Baltimore, Maryland. And unlike the multitude on the internet who talk about black issues, I actually was a teacher teaching black kids in some of the worst, most dangerous schools in America. I've actually put in the work because I care beyond just babbling my fucking gums. Damn, I didn't mean to curse. Excuse me. I got to be like Cooley. But you heard me. But, you know, the Freddie Gray, the Mike whoever, and the other guy who was, I forget or George Floyd. Yeah, we circle around the wrong persons, but it goes beyond that. Charleston White, who told you guys that he was a person to listen to? He's a rat and a snitch and a criminal. You circle around the Sexy Reds and all of these characters. Black people need to circle around the best of us, the best among us, not the degenerates. So this I agree on, even though he didn't explicitly state that. So my good friend Myron, I think, has a meaningful point here.
Let's continue on.
And what ends up happening is they challenge the police officer, they get into a physical altercation, things go left, they die, something happens, use of force is utilized, and then they want to cry about the result. When in reality, it's not the police killing black people, it's black people killing black people. And if you want to talk about black on white violence, black people kill white people.
So this is another dichotomy. It's a false dichotomy. And again, I can destroy these people's arguments for years on end. I could talk infinitely. Just it's ridiculous. He says, you black people being killed by the police. No, it's black people being killed by black people. This is a false dichotomy. The reason that the population is more angered by the police killing black people is because, unlike your peers, other civilians, be them black or white, we don't expect other civilians to be those who are providing our safety, providing for protection of property, those who we have made public servants and funded through our tax dollar, not only today, but over generations. So if another Black person commits a violent crime against you, it is a terrible thing, and we should look into that. I agree. However, you cannot compare this to the police committing what are essentially crimes against Black people when they're violent toward Blacks or they murder Blacks. Because those are the people that we're paying our tax dollar to. Those are the people whose actual job it is to protect and serve, not to be aggressive, violent, and dominate. And I will also further say that it's become so despicable in this police state that the police they're pretty much grimy to everybody. They're grimy to other police officers that they might encounter off duty. They're grimy to white folks. It's really despicable because the government has gotten too big and they've lost their original charge, which they were charged with serving the taxpayer.
People 2 times as much. And on top of that, most of the shootings in America, a lot of the times, are white cops killing other unarmed white men. So this whole systemic racism or police brutality or, oh, it's all so messed up. The reality is this. Black people have been able to get away with a ridiculous amount of privilege in America for a very long time. They're able to be racist with impunity. They're able to call white people crackers.
So when he says they're able to get away with a lot of privilege, I'll say, what do you mean by privilege? Are you talking about the fact that 49% of the prison population is Black? Is that the privilege you're talking about? Are you talking about the fact that Blacks have the lowest levels of educational attainment? Is that what you're speaking of? What are you talking about? So if we want to categorize it racially, if we looked at it racially in terms of DEI or even affirmative action, we see that the white female is the beneficiary. White. So if we're looking at it racially, then we would still have to reassign the privilege to whites. But I really don't speak in terms of privilege, because if your ancestors created that privilege for you, hey, that's what they earned for you. And it is what it is. But what he's doing is he's absolutely lying, and Piers is not challenging him to give any evidence. And that's why Piers is a particularly slimy character, because you allow Myron to go on with fallacious arguments. They're specious arguments. It sounds like he's correct because it's almost right, but it's completely wrong, actually.
Without being challenged back. And quite frankly, white America's had enough of it, and the chickens have come to roost. Awesome. Now, look, am I saying...
Now, how crazy is he says white America has had enough of it? You're an Arab. You're an Arab. Well, what do you mean? Are you white? Like, why do you care? And that's what I would have asked as Piers. I said, hey, Myron, I just can't help but notice everyone on the panel is either Black or white. So we're kind of directly in this thing. Why do you care? Like your parents, their mother tongue was Arabic, not Swahili. Why do you care? Like what dog do you have in the race? A lot of these Black folks, their family's been here for 400 years. Why do you care so much? And, in answering that question, honestly, it just removes him from the conversation, because he doesn't need to care. He's just a commentator, just like a Ben Shapiro or anybody else. They're just commentators. And when Ben Shapiro is speaking about things that don't involve Zionism, then really he's getting outside of his he's just making content. And frankly, this has nothing to do with Myron, and certainly he shouldn't be speaking on behalf of white people, talking about they're fed up, because truth be told, I don't think that's the case. I, as Myron does, I'm sure, have a ton of white friends. I almost never hear them say, I'm fed up with the way Black people are acting. No, it's that he's around folks that are radicals and racists, and they have a lot to say.
And everyone in the chat right now, I see you guys, a few of you, I'm reading the regular chat. You're like, yo, just let the video play. We already let this portion of the video play. Myron went ahead and spoke, but Marquette is doing a systematic breakdown of each point that is said. So that's what we're doing right now. It's called an internal critique. But okay, let's continue on.
That's awesome. Am I saying that's great? No, but for literally the better part of almost 2 decades since the Obama era, we've had to have BLM and liberalism shoved down our throats. And quite frankly, we're all tired of it.
Pause.
Right. But just to be...
So when he speaks of BLM and liberalism, so liberalism, you're talking about white people, dummy. Liberalism is not something that was created by Blacks. In fact, one of my major criticisms of Black people in America, and in fact around the world, is that they don't seem to be the biggest thinkers. They've not created any ideology or systems of thought. So liberalism is something that comes from whites, and as it's practiced today and spread throughout the earth, it is something that comes from whites. And where do whites program Black people with this idea? They do it in public schools. Teach for America is one major organization that has infiltrated public schools, and they teach this stuff to Blacks and Latinos in poverty. And they also reprogram you at the university level, and of course in between. And then Netflix and other instruments they have. So when he's talking about liberalism, again, he's stepping away from blacks and he's actually talking about what whites are doing. And the truth is, when you're in a majority white system, political system, which is a majority rules system, a democracy, and in this case, it's more rightly described as a republic, then anything that happens can only happen with the consent of white people. So when he's making a suggestion that blacks are some organized villainous group that's highly effective and methodical, this is utterly ludicrous. Black people can scarcely figure out how to keep their families together. They're not creating any mastermind plots to marginalize the whites. That's a different group of people that are going to remain unnamed.
All right, we got a few super chats in here. I'm trying to pull them up for you guys. Let's see here. There was one that I seen. Okay. Paying tuition, how can we get you on the show? Okay, talking about the Piers Morgan show. You know, it's funny. Me and Marquette, we had this conversation behind the scenes in regards to getting on the Piers Morgan show. You know, I would say if you want to get Marquette or myself or anyone on the Piers Morgan show, it will take maybe you commenting on some of his videos. So, Marquette has a lot of supporters, all of the Saints. Go to Piers Morgan video and just comment in at Marquette's channel. Just spam it. If you spam it, it's going to see it. It's going to be the most viewed comment. And then he's going to have he's going to go ahead and look into it. Like, who is this guy? Okay, let me reach out. So that's one way to do it. The other way is, keep grinding. We got this podcast that we just started called The Commission. This is our first episode with many more to come. So we putting in that work, but with y'all support, we'll get there. Things will be accomplished. Okay. Let's see. Let's continue on with this internal critique. I think he's just about done too.
To be clear, you would have no problem with one member of this panel openly.
Okay, yeah, he was done with that. So now we'll just play it from here and continue to react to the channel. Hey, Marquette, good breakdown, bro.
I appreciate that. And you got to ignore the dimwits, because what they really are, they're devils and agents of destruction. They're trying to destruct what we're doing. If you don't like the way we're running the show, watch a different show, because it's never the people who are super chatting. It's never the people who really support. These are just detractors, because if they really want to see that video without any pauses, they can just go watch the original video.
Go right to the original video.
Right.
Yeah,
so
that's facts.
You got to keep your eyes on the prize. These people are out here being devils.
Let's continue on.
He's saying she uses the N-word at black people with impunity and is proud of being a racist. You have no problem with that?
My worldview on the protection of the First Amendment and freedom of speech overrides my personal feelings. She has the right to say
That's fine. You can support.
Yeah, that wasn't the question at all. Let's bring it back real quick. I want to hear that again one more time.
That's awesome. Am I saying that's great? No, but for literally the better part of almost 2 decades since the Obama era, we've had to have BLM and liberalism. Feeling she has. My feelings are irrelevant. The Constitution is the Constitution. That's what matters.
Oh, that's fascinating. Hold on. So when it comes to chastising black Americans about their behavior, about calling white people crackers, as you say, about their moral claims about the racist system, you can levy a judgment against black Americans for all the things they do. But when it comes to this woman saying
hold up. You know what? I'm going to rewind it back a little bit more just so we get all of that, because it kind of skipped ahead a little bit. So we had 8:13. Let's go back to this area.
When it comes to
And while you're doing that, shout out to Mont. He writes, she went viral for saying the N-word in a song like Cooley spoke about, not hard R. Then I'm sure an onslaught of black folk and liberal tried to ruin her life. She's chosen darkness because darkness accepted her. Okay. Shout out to Alex. He writes, you're 100% right. I'm Italian American with roots in Italy less than 60 years ago. I do not have white pride. F them racists. And that makes perfect sense, because he has a real culture. You know what I'm saying? And the funny thing is, for those who are not sophisticated, they talk about like white power. If you actually go to Europe, you might talk to the French, and the French don't like anybody. The British don't like the French. The Albanians aren't considered white. It's like everyone has their own group. Like white basically means nothing effectively. The whites in America are in a similar boat to the blacks in America, in as much as they don't have a true way to trace their specific lineage.
My worldview on the protection of the First Amendment and freedom of speech overrides my personal feelings. She has the right to say
That's
it.
fine.
And
You can support the First Amendment, but you can also have a personal view about what she said.
My feelings are irrelevant. The Constitution is the Constitution. That's what matters.
Oh, that's
And
fascinating. Hold on. So when it comes to chastising Black Americans about their behavior, about calling white people crackers, as you say, about their moral claims, about the racist system, you can levy a judgment against Black Americans for all the things they do. But when it comes to this woman saying the N-word, and this other woman endorsing it and saying that she herself uses the N-word, now all of a sudden we can only talk about the Constitution and the legal right. We can't offer any moral judgment against it. That's disingenuous. And it's as the only Black American up here, that's quite frustrating to hear.
I'll pause it right there. I'm gonna be honest. I do not like Mark Lamont Hill. I think that he's educated, but he's a male feminist, and he truly believes that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. And I don't even know why he's speaking about, these terms. I don't know why he's harping on the N-word, because the N-word has a meaning, right? But mind you, he believes that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, which he extract the meaning from man and woman.
Right.
But when some people use the N-word, they do extract that negative meaning from it. So he knows that some white people, and even him, he uses the N-word where he extracts the meaning from it, where it's like, it's almost meaningless, is because it's like, yo, what up, my nigga? It's almost like saying, hey, what up, Brian? You get what I'm saying? Like if you are calling another Black person that. So he's able to extract the meaning out of a word. But then when it comes to his liberal ideas, man and woman, well, let's not extract the meaning out of those words and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? So it's a little weird. The other point, though, that I wanted to make in regards to this is that, so this is a situation here where I hope Myron has a good response, because where Pierce asked him a question and Myron he didn't really answer it directly at all. He kind of moved on to something else. And then Mark Lamont Hill was checking him on it like, wait, I find it funny how you can, have a judgment on, Black people, BLM riots and all of this stuff, and Black people saying these words, cracker and all of this, but you can't place a judgment on, Shiloh and what she did. Why can't you place a judgment? Instead, right. Myron appealed to one of the amendments of freedom of speech. So hopefully he gives a good response back to this, and let's see.
If you want to be soft and get offended by that, that's your fucking problem, not mine.
Let me ask Ricky.
We're not even.
Let me ask Ricky. Ricky, I want to.
Right then and there, I would give it to Mark Lamont Hill. He didn't get offended. He was actually using logic. Like, wait a second.
Right.
You placing judgment here. Why aren't you placing judgment there? So let's continue on.
This isn't about being soft any more than when you were desperately saving these white people.
Hold on. This sensitive nature that you have is precisely why we have this problem.
It's not about being sensitive. It's about I didn't articulate. Hold on. Let me finish, Myron. Let me speak, and then I'll let you respond. Myron, sure. I didn't articulate any sensitivity here. What I said, in the same way that you levied a judgment against Black people, I'm levying.
Well, let's be honest. This nigga is being sensitive. He using some logic right there, but he is sensitive. Let's be honest.
One against the claims you're making. I'm no more sensitive than you were when you made your claim. I'm simply saying I disagree with you. And to immediately jump to you're being sensitive is just a distraction. I'm making an argument here. Just respond to my argument.
If you're struggling with sleep,
chill.
You gotta skip,
yeah, chill, Pierce. All right, let's skip ahead. Let's go right here.
Now, and my argument to respond to that is this: political correctness, liberalism, and making sure that we are politically correct and don't use certain words could offend people is precisely why we're in the situation that we're in. For decades, we've had to literally tiptoe around saying certain things around certain people, while the other group of people has been able to have impunity and be able to be as racist as they want to be, as violent as they want to be, without any type of consequence. And if you call it out, you're labeled a racist. The reality is that
the level of stupidity of this, I'm not saying Myron is stupid. We all know better than that. He's an intelligent guy, but he clearly has some emotional and psychological things that put him, that make him argue for a certain position. and maybe even financial reasons too. And I say that, with full love and respect for him as an individual. But what he said was just so ludicrous. It was patently ludicrous in as much as he said, certain groups have been able to complain and then act out racism and then get privileges. I'm like, yeah, that would be white people, like that. And not even all white people. That's just like the empowered class of white people. There's some white folks they're poor today, and you go back 100, 200 years, their family was still poor. There's whites in Louisiana and Mississippi that have been poor since ever. But it's quite strange that he would suggest that blacks have somehow dominated American society. It's just the most bizarre commentary. And furthermore, when you talk about political correctness can have two different places that it lands. It can be within culture, which is irrelevant because there's no consequence, or it can be within government. We observe in the UK right now, if you say certain things, you might end up in jail for a social media post. That is a problem when it's within government. And those things are not the creation of blacks, because blacks don't have any power. Those are the creation of whites. And so, again, we're allowing him to skip by on these extremely flimsy arguments. And it's just so disappointing because you don't have any true intellectuals on this panel. Like, no one is picking these things up. I think Lamont has done a decent job at presenting himself. Mostly, I'm not very impressed with him, but I think he's done a good job here. And in terms of the four people on the panel, I think he's represented best.
This. Black people don't want to live around black people. I don't want to live around a bunch of black people. I move to neighborhoods where it's majority white because I know I'm safe. Now, this is uncomfortable reality that no one wants to say, so I'll say it for them.
I would have paused them right
Black
there
people,
if I was Piers. I would have said, you're Sudanese. Are there any Sudanese neighborhoods? Like, why wouldn't you move into a majority Sudanese neighborhood? Like, that's a conversation we should be having, right? Because you're Sudanese. You said blacks are bad. Fair enough. Like, me personally, I haven't lived in a black neighborhood since I moved out the ghetto. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, same here.
You heard me? And I wouldn't move back in unless it's Silver Spring, Maryland, which is a very affluent black neighborhood. And if I had kids, that's certainly where I would want to be among other black people, because my kids are black and I don't want them to be discriminated against. But moreover, it would be completely appropriate to say, hey, you're Arab, you're Sudanese. Would you move into a Sudanese neighborhood? And if so, where are they? And if you say there aren't any in America, then say, well, will you move back to your country? And the question is, why is no one asking this? Like, it's like weird because he's being treated as either an honorary black man or an honorary white man, and he is neither. It's like we're ignoring what he is. It's like the biggest elephant in the room, and it's just so bizarre to me. It's like people are like dealing with the stage name and the stage presence rather than the substance of the man.
Yeah, and I think that this part of the conversation it's less about race, because I understand what Myron is saying, where he's saying that I wouldn't move in a black neighborhood and stuff like that. The underlying thing of what he's saying is the values that people share. So it's like, okay, you wouldn't want to live in the area where people have degenerate values, where the woman is the one working, the man is the one at home. Like, it's this one comedian, he made a funny joke. He was like, when it's not safe when you walk into a neighborhood and you see no women, and you see men that's like, hanging out on a porch and stuff, and you see men that's, riding their bike around during the daytime. That's probably not a safe area. But if you go to an area and there's women riding their bikes, taking the kids for a walk in a stroller and, kind of hanging out on a porch, getting some sun, well, then that's a good neighborhood, because the men are somewhere working and the women are at home taking care of the children. But when you have situations where you walk into the hood, like, think about hoods. Normally it's guys that's hanging out during, on the street. And they're not working. So I get what Myron is saying, but the underlying layer is we should be judging people on the content of their character, like, Martin Luther King said, rather than the color of their skin. And I think that he holds those views as well. But let's continue on. But before I do, Marquette, you got anything on that?
No, I agree with you. I think that was a very good explanation.
Cool. Let's move on.
People commit a lot of crimes. A majority of the violent crime committed in the United States is committed by a small percentage of people, and they tend to be black men. Look, The reality is the reality. People don't want to say it, but the political correctness and being nice and not wanting to tell the truth is precisely this problem. And the reason why you're seeing all the support for Metcalf and Shiloh, etc., is because white people have not been able to step up and say what they want to say for a very long time because of what I said before, systemic, organized, where they don't take accountability for their decisions.
What's that word that they bleeping out? Don't say it, but is he's talking about Jews or something? I don't know what it is. What's that word?
Idea.
Bring in Ricky to respond. Ricky.
You know what? Let's move it on to the part where that explosion happened on the panel where they both got irate, where everybody on the panel got irate, and Pierce pressed Mark Lamont Hill. Well, Pierce pressed the white woman to say the N-word, and Mark Lamont Hill, got his panties in a bunch. So we're going to skip ahead.
Let's go back to the panel there. I mean, Ricky, it seemed to me a lot of inconsistencies in Mr. Wells's position, not least the donning of the Christian hat when it suits them, but then removing it when it doesn't.
I think it's definitely tough.
Okay, let's get another timestamp here. That's
coming out and supporting someone who you guys might deem as a terrible racist, but I think it's also very important to understand how we got here, because if we're going to look at the smaller problem, we can't look at the bigger problem, and it's what I said before, unchecked, systemic.
All right, Mark Lamont Hill, your last words on this.
This repeated use of the word, I think, first of all, I want to just register that as offensive, particularly as someone who doesn't identify as a member of that community and who is not, right? I think that's incredibly
I'm the definition of African American. I'm the definition of African American.
And troublesome, and to as a Sudanese American or an outsider.
Wait, Marquette, did you catch that? Are they talking about, is Mark Lamont Hill talking about identifying as the N-word?
I think he was talking about being able to speak on behalf of blacks. And then he was basically saying, Myron, you're an outsider. You're not really a part of this. And then Myron was facetiously saying, well, I am the definition of an African-American.
FBA, that's right.
Using African-American, the very technical term, the same way that Elon Musk is an African-American, I think it is a bit disingenuous. But the bigger issue here, I think, is that, this idea of equating of one side to the other side often loses track of this issue of power. To use his example, when black people stand up and say, hey, let's build our own stuff. Hey, let's have a black power movement. That is not the same as a white power. I'll let you speak uninterrupted. Let me finish, please, my Sudanese brother. So when a black person says, hey, let's preserve our culture, I have no problem with Italians or Irish people or anyone else saying let's preserve our culture. But when we don't talk about ethnicity, but actual race, and when white people say let's preserve whiteness, it's an exclusionary practice. It's about preserving laws and practices and tactics that do harm to other people. A black power movement was about opening stores and building businesses. A white power movement was a white power. That's the giga. A white power movement was about something very, 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 very different. A white power movement included lynchings and included Ku Klux Klan, etc. So let's not pretend that these are opposite sides of the same coin. When white people say, let's save our country, and even using the language of our country, when black people built this thing, when you say that, you're talking about forcing people out of the country. You're talking about laws that discriminate. You're talking about doing harm to people. Let's not pretend these are the same thing, just like these GoFundMe campaigns are not the same thing. I'm okay if everybody gets out of the GoFundMe industrial complex. I'd love that. But let's not pretend that supporting someone for a fair trial is the same thing as supporting a grown white woman berating and calling the N-word to a 5-year-old autistic black child. And
so here I would give it to Mark Lamont Hill because he has the ability to differentiate things. Because he is stating the facts on both sides and the differences between the Shiloh calling a little black kid the N-word and the difference of, the Carmelo Anthony situation. And I don't think anyone on a panel is arguing this point either. And he mentioned it in the beginning of the podcast as well, and no one really pushed back on that. I would say probably because they have no pushback. But we got Mont and Deja sends in $5. Shout out to y'all, by the way. You guys are two intellectuals and are always willing to civilly exchange ideas, not just to win debates. Believe it or not, that's rare. Yeah, man, I would say Marquette did give me a compliment in the beginning, so it's only right that I share a compliment back to him. He's a smart individual, as everyone knows in the chat, and I don't think he gets enough credit. This is one of the we speak behind the scenes all the time. And when I look at Marquette, I'm like, man, we're similar in so many ways, but you actually read books. I read no books. I was like, my intelligence just came from, I guess, genetics. Yours came from genetics too, but you actually went to college, got a degree, and you read some books. So as a man, man to man, you got to respect it. And I think he's a smart brother, and a lot of people can learn from him. And it's not to say that we agree on 100% of things. I'm sure we have some disagreements, but it shows the friendship and the character when you can put little things aside, maybe where you can have a little different perspective on something. You can start a business and really get stuff done. And I think it's showing here on the podcast where, yielding to Marquette to really give y'all this game. You know what I'm saying? Because I have things and a perspective to speak to, but he's so articulate. Let him, get this game from him.
I appreciate you, bro.
I'm not gonna, it's like Shaq and Kobe. When Shaq and Kobe was playing a game together, it's like, okay, Brad, Kobe had to give the ball to Shaq down low because Shaq was dominating. He was dominating. It is not to say that Kobe wasn't pulling up, taking it to the hole and shooting J's, but you know what I mean. But let's continue on. So shout out to Marquette.
I appreciate you.
The fact that everyone in here can't be unanimous in condemning that
I totally
says exactly
agree.
how they're not the same.
I totally agree. I'm going to go to Lily Gaddis and just ask you one more time. I mean, you've been so unashamedly proud of being a racist today, proud of using the N-word whenever you feel like it. You've had a bit of time to think about this. Is that how you want people to leave this panel debate, with thinking of you as a disgusting racist?
Yeah, Pierce is slimy. Disgusting racist. Pierce is...
Shout out to my boy Pierce,
man.
I don't really care what people think about me. As long as you care about what people think about you, you have no power and you lose your country. What I care about is freedom of speech. And if you're not allowed to say the most offensive thing...
That part I do agree with her. You can't care about what people think about you. If you do care about what people think about you, you are basically relinquishing your power to them. You're giving them, your power. So the chick this is the most direct chick probably in all of America, but let's continue on.
things in this country, you do not have freedom of speech. I don't care what anybody says. So that's the main crux of this situation. That's what I care about with this situation. It is, we have lived for far too long in a country where you can have your life destroyed, and people say, oh, she doesn't need this money. Her life's destroyed, by the way. She'll never be able to get another job. She's got children to have to support.
Yeah, she destroyed her own life by being like that, having that hatred in her heart. And it's not even destroyed because
but if it was, she did it.
If it was, she did. And I think she earned almost $1 million or close to $1 million already of, people supporting her cause. And I'm not even sure what it's for. I guess it's because it's different. It's because it's like the Carmelo Anthony situation. People are sending him money because he's going through court situations. He's battling the courts. Her situation, like you mentioned in the beginning, Marquette, is like she's not having any legal battles. She may lose her job, but we don't even know if she lost that. So
she might not even have a job.
She might not even be working. Yeah. All right, so let's continue on.
And I don't want to live in a country where you can say an inappropriate, rude thing, which, by the way, Black people can say things to white people all the time and they never get canceled. There's no backlashing about this. I want to live in a country where people are allowed to say what they want unashamedly, and you can.
Yeah, that's so feminine too. It's like, well, you get to say this, well, I want to say that. And this coming from her makes sense because she's a woman. Women always like to try to equalize everything and make things in an egalitarian sense. But that part coming from her makes sense, but it's illogical, it's nonsensical, is because why would you want to equalize insults? It's like, if anything, someone says an insult, it's like, I don't cuss for a reason. And I try to promote people to not cuss. So it's like, I'm not going to cuss at you, even though you cuss at me. Let's kind of just stop the hatred. So why would you want to equalize the hatred? So that's just dumb and stupid. What's your take on that, Marquette?
Well, number one, I do want to, adopt that trait from you because that's a good thing, and we should all be seeking to improve and be around people with good traits. With regards to the common argument that you hear from white supremacists is like, oh, well, if you're saying the N-word, why can't I say the N-word? This just reminds us of their cloaking strategies. Number one, why is it saying the N-word is some major privilege? I thought getting your kids into good schools was an important focus in life, earning more income, starting a business, buying a home. Why is it that saying the N-word has meaning in the life of whites or non-blacks? It has no actual meaning. This is just the fact that many of them would like to say the N-word with the hard R, and they use this small little skirmish as something to basically create the idea that blacks are holding off some privilege. There's no privilege in saying the N-word. Frankly, it's silly. It's just the fact that blacks still have a lot of holdovers from being enslaved. For example, there's recently something I shared on my story, and if you don't follow me on IG, check me out at Marquette Davon, MarquettDavon, if you want to see how bosses live. But I shared a story, and I thought it was funny because it was basically a series of letters. And it said, if you're black, you know what this acronym stands for. And unfortunately, I looked at it and I knew what it meant immediately. It was something to the effect of get your black ASS in the house right, got DAM now, which is unfortunately something common that single black mothers who are frustrated and exhausted say to their kids. They're very vulgar, but a lot of the I don't want to say insults, but when they're chastising their children, black women say, get your black ASS. Doesn't that almost sound racist when you think about it? Like if you were a white person, you said, get your black ASS, you'd be like, whoa. And all that is the black person adopting the language of the overseer. It's the black person adopting the language of their enslaver. And it's trickled down and survived generation upon generation. So they need reprogramming. But I say that to say this. Black people abuse themselves with the language of the enslaver. For white folks to say, hey, I want to join in on that is really bizarre and peculiar. There are a lot of white folks who might say it with no malicious intent because it's in a rap song. Me personally, I don't care if someone says it, if they're white, Asian, Latino, I don't care at all.
Facts,
I grew up in a hood that was half Mexican, half black, and my Mexican homies grew up among us eating the same food, speaking the same language. So I'm no more offended with them saying that than if I was teasing them or even dead serious, like, hey, way, we grew up among one another. And I know that they're not trying to say anything offensive. I think it's sad when black folks get mad at a white and Asian, a Latino who's saying the N-word, N-I-G-G-A, harmlessly, because that's one of the people who may be your most likely ally outside of your racial category, and you're turning them into an enemy, wherein there's people like Nerd Fuentes that actually hate your guts, and you're overlooking them but getting mad at the guy who lives in your neighborhood or the guy who's a friend of yours or a colleague of yours, and you're getting mad at the person that's actually innocent. It's really sad and strange. But at the end of the day, the cloaking strategy of these white supremacists, what they'll do is they say it's about freedom of speech. It's not about freedom of speech. It's really about freedom for you to say things that are hateful so that you can create a nucleus around which you can bring in and organize other hateful whites to eventually do violence to black and colored people.
And it's funny because I actually had I was doing a live stream, and people know that I do my live debates. I had some weird character. He was on the Jubilee episode before. I think he may have been on the episode with Myron, and he came on my stream and was calling Myron all type of names, calling him the N-word and stuff like this. And I had to stop this guy. Hard R, yeah, hard R. I said, hey, I'm not offended by you using the N-word, but maybe we can get to that point. But he's a white guy, and he was calling Myron the N-word and some other people. And I said, listen, I'd never met Myron in my life, but I highly doubt that you would call him that word to his face. I say that to say, we all experience some type of clowns that use the word, and they're not really about that life. And they're not about that life, meaning that they're not ready to deal with the consequences. Because if you call me the N-word, if you call me a mother effer, if you call me any insult, it doesn't mean that I'm going to react to it. But it's like, why do it to provoke a reaction? Because I may just have a day where it's like, you know what? I'm reacting to everything. Everything is going up. You never know. It be like that, right? Why would you use a word to insult someone? It just is stupid. So I checked that white guy on a podcast, and he apologized and stuff like that. But I say that to also say that, we're not coming at Myron here. Like, Marquette just expressed that, him and Myron are friends. I've never met the man, and I even stuck up for him when some random dude was coming at him on my stream. So it's all love here, man. Let's continue on.
Well, go on then, say it. Say the N word. Go on, say the N word. Go on.
No. Don't invite. No. I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me, because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N word, because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here. You and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and asking her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand.
So one, on that part, you got to give him some credit on the ending part, the tail ending of that. If it was a Jew up here, you would not, Pierce, you would not be pressing. You would never do it. You would never press another person to use a Jewish slur word to a panel. If a person was on a panel that was a Jew, you would never do it, Pierce. So that part of what Lamont Hill said, the ending was facts. The other stuff was an emotional rant. It's funny that he's saying, don't, influence her to use the N-word and provoke her to use the N-word because it is hurtful to me. I would feel hurt. Nigga, how would you feel hurt? You're a grown man, nigga. It's a word. On stream, how you really gonna feel that hurt? It's gonna hurt you, bro? Are you really a victim like that? The other thing, right after that, he then uses the N-word. So one, he's telling Pierce not to have anyone on the panel use the N-word. And then he uses the N-word. And then he insults Myron by calling him Uncle Tom. So that was wild. So like I said, when it comes to this character, Mark Lamont Hill, he's not anyone that, I'm fond of at all. I would agree with Marquette that he had some of the most base takes on here, but I already told y'all he's feminine. He's a soft man. He's a male feminist, and you see it right here. He's very emotional and he's very sensitive. What's your take on this, Marquette?
I think the Uncle Tom term is supposed to be applied to other Black Americans who, or foundation, whatever you want to call them, who betray one another. So you couldn't rightfully apply that to Myron because he's not a foundational Black American. I get his point, though. The outburst was disappointing. Primarily, and people act like showing emotion is just always a bad thing or it's always feminine. This is actually stupidity, and most of the internet is stupid because to have emotion is to be human. To utilize emotion is to be strategic, and there's different types of emotion. So his emotion was on the victim side. He could have been aggressive and said, hey, I hope that, people who are watching organize and do this consequence to you. And he could have yelled and screamed and drummed up emotion and tried to pass off that emotion and that spirit, that fighting spirit, into some viewers who maybe really rock with him and said, hey, when you guys see so-and-so or you see so-and-so, do something to him. And that would have been really meaningful and I could respect it. But to say, you're going to hurt me, don't say the word, it's like, bro, knock it off. Are you weird? But the answer is yes. Yes, he is weird. He's intelligent, but he's one of those folks that are dangerous. He's intelligent, but his intelligence is used for dangerous ends, like confusing people about gender or pushing the white liberal woman agenda. So it's really disappointing to see him explode like that. But sadly, I think he sincerely feels that. And that's why I say, 20% of black people got to be eradicated, because some of these foolish thoughts you can't pull out of their minds any more than you can pull hatred out of the mind of the ugly white woman, the one that's second to the last. And it's a pity the pretty white woman didn't get a chance to say anything. She let the ugly one do all the talking. Me personally, I don't generally like to hear anything women have to say, but if I must, at least let her be pretty. So I have to listen to this mud duck. It was really a tragedy.
We got Joshua Rotondo. He sends in a super chat. He says, Saint, please connect Myron with David. All right.
You know what? I actually have done that. I didn't get a response. It could be because of busyness, could be because of various things, but I did actually do that. And the reason I did that is, as I said earlier, David's always been looking out for me, so I want to return the favor. So that's already been done. That wouldn't be something I would sit on.
True.
You don't have any bad intent, Pierce. I understand what you're trying to do,
but
we already know she's
I hear
racist.
you.
No. Pierce had all the bad intent. I don't know what you're talking about. Pierce knew exactly what he was doing. Pierce knew that by provoking that little white woman to say the N-word, he knew you was emotional. That's why you up here. So he was looking for this. This was the most viral moment. This clip right here, this is the part that's going viral. Not the stuff that maybe a few things that maybe, Myron and the white chick said, but this part is going viral.
I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
I hear you, and I accept that, and we'll leave it.
And the crazy thing is, like, how can you be hit? I guess his camera was shaking, because if I'm moving, it's like, it doesn't seem like to look back a little bit. He was so emotional. I guess he was causing some commotion in the house.
In front of this Jew, it's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Pierce. I understand what you're trying to do, but we already know.
Yeah. He's really, like you said, Marquette. This probably really touched him. Yeah,
it did. I mean, bro is a blur right now. My nail was like, he's a blur right now.
Yeah, this is funny. Hey, so that pretty much sums up this video. I do want to encourage everyone to subscribe to the Commission Podcast at The Commission 1 on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to us. This is me and Marquette's joint podcast. This is episode number 1. We got plenty more to come. We are working on bringing some popular guests on the podcast as well. So we got a lot more content for you guys in the future. Marquette, you want to get to anything, any super chats in your Venmo or PayPal you want to get to?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Shout out to Master Quincy writes, Peace of the Saints, finally caught you live. I was hoping you gave insight on this, and you always come through. All your work is phenomenal and legendary, and you got Cooley in the mix. What's good, Cooley? Keep the weights on they chest. Shout out to Montandeja writes, Myron isn't black genetically or culturally. I think he uses it when he wants to join conversations. Shout out to the ballers. Armor writes, support. Jamal writes, I'm behind on the live, but I'm here for the game. Shout out to Tyreek writes, Peace of the Saints. Shout out to Dimavelli writes, Quet spitting facts. Shout out to Mont writes, Myron means to talk about his recent kind of black supremacy. Oh, this recent kind of black supremacy, which isn't black supremacy. It's just arrogance and faux confidence. A black woman is talking type. Dean writes, paying tuition. How can we get you on the show, M? I'm not sure which one.
I think he's talking about Pierce, the Pierce Morgan Uncensored show. Yeah,
gotcha. I think we're going to have to organize a campaign, and we'll have to pick a time to reply to a specific tweet in an organized way and have everyone upvote it, or either I'll tweet and then everyone will have to upvote it. Shout out to Antoine writes, Superman versus Spawn. Maybe it's more about superiority and inferiority as well. I served in the U.S. military, and by the way, this is a bowler alert, and seen some differences on how each culture treats those who are non-color and those who are color. Will it ever end? Hell nah, it ain't gonna end. Unless everyone gets mixed up and everybody looks like Steph Curry in the future. Mont comes back, writes, Quet, you think you could have this talk with Myron in good faith on both ends? I think it'll definitely be in good faith because we have a good friendship. He writes, meaning with confidence in your argument, but operate under the assumption that the other party has the ability to change your perspective. I don't think either of us will think that the other party is going to change our perspective, but I think we'll reason together, and I think there's a lot of points of intersection. Shout out to Mont, he writes, or do you believe one of you will leave with a bad taste? No, I don't think so. I think we already know where we stand. He's seen enough of my content. I've seen enough of his content. Shout out to Lawya writes, Peace of the Saints. Shout out to Cooley and MDB. Race classification and ideology from two German anthropologists led to billions being murdered based on color, not behavior or practice. Truly a moronic idea society accepted. I don't think that they're the reason for that. I think people were racist before that. They just added science to it and order, which is what Germans do. Shout out to Mont and Deja writes, shout out to y'all. By the way, you guys are two intellectuals and are always willing to civilly exchange ideas, not just win debates. Believe it or not. That's you read that one earlier. Sorry about that. Mont writes, MHL made a great point with the Elon Musk. Agree. Manny writes, people may hate to hear it, but we all know that Myron isn't wrong about the culture, which has led to a disproportionate amount of crime being committed by a small demographic. We all agree there. But the question is, what's the next step? Is it just to disparage and put down, or are we trying to build something and like what's after that? Because he actually specifically said, people are scared to say. That's a lie. People have never been scared to say blacks are inferior. People have never been scared to say blacks are criminal. People have never been scared to say it. He's saying it on a public platform. Nick gets rewarded for saying things like that. And so this is a lie. It's obviously not true by merit of the fact that you're hearing it in public. Shout out to Three Diglets writes, true intelligence is getting what you want out of life. Shout out to those who read The Black Box. You can get that on Amazon, by the way. Highly recommend it. Mont came back. Man, is Mont one of your guys? Bro is really supporting out here.
Possibly. I'm not sure.
Okay. He writes, I believe in freedom of speech. However, is she saying private employers don't reserve the right to fire you for their own reasons? Yeah, I think that is what she's saying. Casual Germ writes, Peace of the Saints. Am I wrong for actively seeking out a mid-looking white woman to team up with and try that GoFundMe money glitch? Bro, I mean, hey. And here's the funny thing. The victims will be white racists. So you might be doing God's work. You're going to have to go get a black baby, though, and have her called a black baby, all kinds of terms. All right. I didn't want to invite any racial harm to me. It's crazy. He thinks he's an injured. Bro, that was insane. William writes, you guys are my two favorite. I just hate the way people fall for the divide and conquer. It's the plan to destroy us. And there's one I missed. Somebody that said not even Dr. Umar Johnson would call a white baby.
Hey, man, that's funny. Dude,
and I think you're right about that.
Yeah, Umar Johnson, he's a interesting character. Because I would definitely want to do a podcast with him just so I can ask him some questions to get his take. The first question I would ask him is, for $1 million, would you sleep with the white woman? If he says no,
I know.
If he says no, it's like, come on, man, you're disingenuous. You are a liar. Big lion, man, because you're not that much in support of black people because you have a child that you weren't even taking care of. More than one. So it's like, come on now, man. And then people get on me like, yo, Cooley, you're with a white woman. You god dang right I am. You know what? Guess what? I got full custody of my kids too. Look at me.
Let one of them kids try to steal something out of her diaper bag.
Listen, man, listen. At the end of the day, they would hold a Dr. Umar up like he's in support of black people. Cooley, you're with a white woman. You're not in support. Mm-hmm. This man wasn't even taking care of a seed that he planted, and that seed is black. Meanwhile, I was, and I am. So that's the difference. Action speaks louder than words. Actually, action speaks louder than what you see. Because what you see always isn't what's fully the truth that's being presented. And mind you, I've always been no fugazi, man, and never hid anything. And Marquette knows this is why we teamed up and, doing a podcast together, because if when you get two individuals like this doing a podcast, if there's any sense of like fraud or like niggas not being real or something fake, it wouldn't be. It just wouldn't be. It wouldn't happen. And I know like there's been exposés about me, exposés about Marquette and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if it wasn't real, you wouldn't even see it happening, because all the saints, you guys know that Marquette wouldn't team up and do a podcast with just anyone. All the No Fugazi supporters, you know how brutal I am. and my perspective on things. I just wouldn't team up and do a podcast with someone that's a scammer or someone that's this. It ain't happening. So all the negative comments and all the negative propaganda that y'all seen about, us maybe in the past, it isn't true. It isn't true. You got the realest teaming up to do a podcast together, man. Marquette, question for you. And we can do this live too for the chat. So the next, because this guy is all the way in another country traveling, doing some Renaissance man stuff. So when's the next time you want to do this again for the chat?
You know what? It would be extraordinary if this would be the first podcast I do on a regular basis at a regular time. So this would be an extraordinary time to start that off. And this next 14 months, we calling it Hustlemania. So I'd like to do that. I want to do things differently, bigger. This has to be our year. So this time right here, what is it? Did we start at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Eastern, yeah.
5 p.m. Eastern. If that works for you, we can go ahead and put that in the books. I should be back in the States by this time. Next time I'll be, traveling through some small towns. So my background will look a little shiesty, but we can get it.
All right, say that. So I would say you guys can get another podcast from the commission next week on Thursday, because you'll be back in the States by then, right?
Wait, hold on. Today's Wednesday in the States, right?
Today is Wednesday in the States. I'm sorry, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Next week on Wednesday.
Folks, it's Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mark your calendars, whether you notification or not, and make sure you subscribe to the commission. And let me just acknowledge these last couple folks. Shout out to Mont, came back again. He writes, I'm a neutral party, not necessarily a subscriber of either technically, but I appreciate the ability of you both to articulate your positions. Okay, bro, just showing
love. That's what's up, man.
Respect. Shout out to Antoine as well, supporting the work. And may I acknowledge Ramon came in via Venmo. He writes, tuition will catch the replay. Also acknowledge via Venmo. Shout out to Joseph supporting the work. He's very consistent. Shout out to Charles, aka Thule, writes, tuition, enjoying the show. Very good. I enjoyed the show as well. I also acknowledge via PayPal. Shout out to Melvin supporting the work. We appreciate you. Shout out to Eric. Writes, do we agree that the hard R and the word Nigga are two different things? Yes, we do agree on that one, Eric. Shout out to Austin, writes, if Myron is invited to the cookout, I need my invitation. Bro, I'm telling you, man, we giving him to everybody if he coming. Shout out to Uchida supporting the work. Says he sent in an email via Venmo. He writes, quote, this interview shows why the assassin is the only way. Myron is the same as the guest on the panel, low IQ. By the way, these are this is the writings of the super chatter. He writes, Myron was asked a specific question and gave a roundabout answer. The white lady is racist in its purest form, and Myron chants freedom of speech. Indeed. The white racist doesn't understand that blacks cannot be racist as they do not have the power position. They cannot discriminate and stereotype, but they can discriminate and stereotype, but cannot be racist. He has another one. Okay.
In chat, it is Thursday. Why did I say Wednesday? Because Marquette is somewhere else. So yeah, it is Thursday. And I think where you are, it's Friday. Okay. Yeah. Okay,
right. Indeed.
We all off. It's Thursday here in the States.
But you know what? But here's the thing though, Cooley. The reason we're doing it today on Thursday is because we had to reschedule.
Yeah. We had to reschedule. It was
meant to be
Wednesday. That is correct.
And to be honest, the reason I liked it on Wednesday is because nothing really pop off on Wednesday. Now we might keep it Thursday. Maybe we should do a poll or have a conversation. But I remember when I was in university, Thursday night was stuff was cracking Thursday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday was cracking. So you're kind of out and about. But I'm down to do Thursday if you're trying to do Thursday.
You know what? Wednesday, hump day. I like Wednesday. Yeah, let's do Wednesday. It just makes sense. All right. And also, we will have an intro for you guys. Also, anyone that are editors, we need some editors to help out with the creativity for the show. So you can go ahead and DM me on Instagram at No Fugazi Podcast on Instagram, or you can hit up my main Instagram channel at Cooley1007. Hit me up, or also contact Marquette as well, because we are looking for some editors to, and if you are good at what you do, I'll definitely pay you. So, Looking forward to get an intro done.
Cooley gonna pay y'all.
Marquette said, Cooley gonna pay. I ain't paying y'all a thing.
What Cooley said. Cooley said he's gonna pay y'all. Shout out to
Listen,
brother.
hit me up, and if you are good at what you do, I'll utilize your stuff. But I'm looking for a full intro and outro to the podcast as well. This would be utilizing some content that we already have. So, we would have to send you some of our content out. And then we are looking for a waiting screen too, like say if the podcast starts at, 5, but we got maybe like a 5-minute waiting time, some, graphics or animation of myself and Marquette. It will be cool if we can present that for you guys. But other than that, man, this podcast was a great one. Anything else, Marquette?
No, I'd say that's about it. Shout out to the folks who supported the work. Shout out to those who have clicked the subscribe button plus the bell on the commission. And we appreciate all the likes and all the super chats, and also you guys sharing this. And maybe one day we'll get Myron on. I almost feel bad, like I was talking behind the good brother's back. But maybe one day we'll get him on and have that conversation.
Yeah, let's do it, man. But other than that, thank you guys for supporting. Hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel at The Commission 1, and we are out. Peace.